We have an original working ranch chuck wagon here that was donated to the museum. Uh, and so we're very fortunate to have that. You don't see very many of these. I have
Yes.
something here I'd like to show you and your viewers.
Yes, I'm
Any
glad you brought that up.
idea what this right here
It
is?
is a brassiere, but
No, this is not Joan of Arc's breastplate or anything like
okay.
that. When this was brought in, we had it in the office, and we would ask a couple people, "Do you know what this is?" And they would look at it, and of course, immediately they'd go, "Well, this looks like a
Okay, hold it
breastplate."
right there. I'm going to get a side view of it. Do you actually know what it is?
Yes.
Okay, well, I was going to say that if neither one of us can figure it out, maybe one of the viewers can tell us
I'm sure one of
exactly
the
what it
viewers
is.
could. This is actually a set of bull blinders. You would put this over the eyes. This is fit over the eyes of the bull,
That
and
makes sense.
this would come down in between the horns or the
Yes,
middle of the head,
I
and
get
that
it.
would be a way that you could lead them around if they
Okay,
maybe a little
okay.
feisty or something like that. Fight, if they
Right,
were fighters in the field, maybe you might have them wear something like this so that
right,
they didn't
right.
injure or hurt other animals.
Yeah.
But this case right here that you're looking at is it's got some different items from the day of the outlaws and the lawmen, and we've got a few pictures here and some things. This was Osage country was pretty much a lot of outlaws hung out here,
Yeah.
especially a little place called Okesa, Oklahoma. Uh,
Okay.
that was kind of a hole in the wall, just about 5 or 6 miles down the road here.
Okay.
And Frank Phillips on his ranch called Woolarock, believe it was in the 1930s, started holding a outlaws and cow thieves kind of a reunion thing. And so for 24 hours, the law and the outlaws could get together without having any arrest or anything like that. And they could all hang out and bring their families. And then, after it was over, they would all disperse. But,
Yes.
the law wasn't supposed to do anything for 24 hours to
Yes.
do that. So,
Frank Phillips, for folks who don't know, is really notable as being an oil man.
yes.
And the Phillips 66 fuel or gasoline that we purchase at many convenience stores these days, those roots trace right directly back to him.
Yes. And he also had some brothers involved in that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
A little place here in Osage County that was called Denoya, which a lot of people called it Whiz Bang, was one of the fastest growing oil field places in the country. And it was one of the wildest in the 1920s.
Wow.
But we have, some famous rodeo people. We have the one-armed bandit from Shidler, Oklahoma, Bruce Tiger. He's a Native American local guy. Has won some all-around rodeo championships. Charlotte Hartness Allen, world champion barrel racer. All of them from this area right here.
Okay. And if you're really into rodeo stuff, you guys need to go over and visit the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum. Cody uh, Garnett hosted
Yes.
a tour through there. It's already on this YouTube channel, and I'll put a link right here. Now, this is got Lone Star Ranch
Yes,
on
this
the
was.
canvas here. Is there a connection, Texas connection, do you think?
I'm not for sure on that. O.C. Haddon, this was O.C. belonged to O.C. Haddon Ranch, and that would be interesting. I'll have to look some of that more
Okay.
information up.
And look here. Here is a photograph of this wagon when it was actually being put to use out on the ranch. That's incredible. Wow.
Just like
And
something out of
taking
the
a look
movies.
in here, my presumptions were correct. I'm looking directly at the back of that chuck box there. And there was no storage unless something else has been removed. Like I say, the dry goods that usually came in large burlap sacks or cotton sacks in the case of flour.
Right. Yes. And there could have been. Um, but we have an exhibit here. This is on our, we have a sister city in France called Montauban. And there's Osage connection with that. Some Osages were taken to Europe back in the early
Okay.
1800s.
Okay.
There were 6 of them. And unfortunately, after they were taken over there and shown around the crown heads of Europe and different places, the gentleman who took them over there ran out of money and he abandoned them.
Oh, no.
So the people of Montauban were, or that lived in the city, let them stay in their homes, fed them, and helped to get some of them back. The Marquis de Lafayette in Paris that fought for America in the American Revolution, he helped raise money to get the other half of them back.
Okay.
So very interesting story.
Wow. Wow, this is an elaborate, what appears to be pump organ. Wow, they just don't make things like this anymore. And I was correct. 1850 pump organ. And back in those days, there wasn't any electrical lighting that I'm aware of, so here is where you could stick a candle or
Little
lantern
lamp.
type
Yeah.
lighting device so you could see your sheet music.
Yes. Have something to read by.
Yes.
We have a little piece right here. This is glass. And we have a little sign here that says, you know, do you know what this is? For a long time, we did not know what this was. And so people would tell us, you know, well, they thought it was maybe a candle snuffer. They thought maybe it went to part of a oil lamp. Just all different kinds of things, and we would try to look these up and just really couldn't find anything. And then one lady happened to come in one day, and she was leaving the museum, and she said, oh, hey, that object you have back there, she says, I think that's a lady's hat stand. And so
Okay.
I looked that up, and sure enough, we found
Wow.
the exact thing, and that's what it was. It was
Wow.
probably in
Yeah,
some
hold it
lady's...
up like that and kind of put your hand behind the ears on top there. I
Right
think
there.
that's what the camera is having a difficult time
Okay.
trying to pick up. There we go.
But this
yeah.
is very rare to have one without any nicks or chips, or not. I don't know. Probably not many. Probably even survived.
I'll bet.
Those are a Victorian style, so it's late 1800s.
Wow.
You know, there were several millinery shops here back in those early days, and so it probably came from one of those.
Wow. Well, what a wonderful collection of artifacts you have here.
Well, thank you. We're very proud of what we get, and we get new items occasionally from people who bring things in and say, you know, would you be interested in having this? Or they've loaned us some things that have been very interesting as well. So we try to keep things out and always looking up history about stuff and
Yes.
things like that. I mean,
And stopped by briefly yesterday and found out that there are always projects that are being worked on. And as a matter of fact, you have one very large project that's in progress now.
yes. Hopefully within the next week or so, we will have, it's our kind of a history of the Osage coming to Osage County, and then going into the story of Killers of the Flower Moon, the Osage Reign of Terror.
Yes.
And it
And
will
as
be,
of this time, that movie has not been released.
that's correct. It has
When
not
I
been.
was here last year at the same time of year, I took some video of the downtown area and also of the railroad depot to share with you. They were still in the process of being put together for the movie as a set background for scenes that would take place in the movie. So I don't know if you folks watching this are watching before the movie is released or that movie has already been released, because this video will be online for quite some time. I hope. I'm sure it will. And so we are still talking about a time prior to the release of the movie. So
Yes.
that's partly why you're working so hard to get this project done.
Yes, ever since the book has been written, people from all over the world, literally, have came here. And a big question that they want to know lots of times is more information about, how it came to be, and the little history of the Osage people.
Yeah.
But they also want to try to see, more. Is there more photographs
Yeah.
of those? Of the family in the book that's
Okay.
kind of written about, and so we kind of took that a little step farther. That we included a lot of photographs that we were able to find of the attorneys, the judges, the other criminals,
Wonderful.
all of those kind of things.
Wonderful, yeah.
And and through our research, what a lot of people don't realize is that we've done research on. They talk about the number of deaths that happened, and so between in my research and going through the roll book, which had the 2,229 names, from 1920 to 1928, there were at least 24 to 34 Osages who died every year.
Wow.
And some of them were murdered, and probably
Yes.
more than we ever
Yes.
will know about.
Yes. And I think we should bring out, we've talked about first that Pawhuska can claim legal ownership of, and that is the very first Boy Scout troop in the United States. Not the Boy Scouts of America.
That's right.
Boy Scouts of England, as it turns out to be. I love learning new stuff every day, even if it's old information.
Yeah.
But there is also another first, which we have not covered as of yet. And that is the fact that because of what was going on in Osage County at that time that this book has been written about, situations that came about because the Osage people suddenly found themselves as being the owners of a lot of petroleum wealth, which they had legal right to. They became very rich, and there was an awful lot of people who wanted some of that wealth. And as a result of all the crime, corruption, everything going on, the federal government decided they needed to get things under control. And what used to be part of the Wild West was now becoming too wild for modern people to accept anymore. So the FBI was created, and their first assignment was right here in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Isn't that incredible?
Totally incredible. All of it.
All right, so you're gathering up a bunch of photographs. It looks like here that a lot of these things are pertaining to the making of the movie. It appears to me they had to bring in lots of period vehicles at the time. I've heard some stories about a Rolls-Royce dealership, and
That's true. That is a story. As far as I know, there was never a Rolls-Royce dealership.
Okay. Maybe
Think,
that was in Tulsa.
I think how that probably got started is that the Osage, because of their wealth, uh, had many of them bought a car that was called a Pierce Arrow.
Okay.
Very
Yes.
popular car.
Yes.
Would resemble a Rolls Royce probably
Yes.
back in the
Yes.
day. Doing history on the Pierce Arrow,
Mm-hmm.
probably every royal family in Europe owned at least one.
Mm-hmm.
All the wealthy people in the United States
Mm-hmm.
liked the Pierce Arrow. And so I think through old pictures and things of people looking at those, their first thought was probably, that's a Rolls Royce. And so I think that's maybe how that story got started. Only because I've never heard of an Osage owning a Rolls Royce.
Okay.
I've never seen any articles in the papers of talking about
Okay.
the Rolls Royce or ads
Okay.
for selling a Rolls Royce.
Okay.
But if you look up, Osage and Pierce Arrow, I think Osages own more Pierce
That
Arrow
makes a little bit
cars
more
than
sense to
probably
me.
any
Yeah.
group of people or people
Yeah.
in the United States at the
That
time.
seems to make much more sense to me. Okay, so also there's quite a few exhibits that are outside of the depot here, and I would like to start, I guess, on the north end. There
Okay.
is a railroad car over there,
Yes.
and I don't know railroad cars really well, um, but uh, I would like to speculate as to the type of car that would be. Now, I think that car was probably dates back to the late 40s, early 50s. I've seen similar trains that were running in my childhood, and I'm thinking due to the location of windows in that car, I'm thinking possibly not specifically a dining car. I'm thinking about a car that would have a kitchen or galley in one part and maybe some dining in another area right attached to the kitchen. And maybe there was another more common dining area or car that would have been attached in front of that as well. Am I close?
It is actually on the back end of it is it's a luggage
Well,
storage.
my other guess was baggage. Yes.
And so they would store the
Baggage car.
baggage there,
Right.
and then there was a place where there was a little galley, had a little kitchen where
Okay.
people who sat in that area could have snacks or drinks
okay.
as they took their journey. As
Okay.
far as I know, I think that's only one of two that may
Wow.
even exist in the world of that particular car.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's a very unique car.
Yeah.
The only thing is, someday we hope that we can get it restored back.
Yes.
That's a full time
Yeah.
thing on
Yeah.
on its own of trying to do that. But it'd be wonderful to do that. We used to have an old cattle car here,
Okay.
and
Boy, you don't see those anymore.
no, you sure don't. And the expense of trying to just keep it up,
Yes.
the wood,
Yes.
deteriorating on it and
Right.
everything. Luckily, we were approached by a group of from Bartlesville, Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
who they restored train cars. Bartlesville has a Santa Fe depot, which is their chamber of commerce,
Okay.
and they have some trains there. And they took on a loan our cattle car, and then has restored it back to its originality.
Okay.
And so, we're very fortunate in that because we're just a small museum,
understand.
and
I
we
understand.
appreciate help and restoring
Yes,
history. But sometimes some people might have ruffled a few feathers, but it was all in good intentions, and I think they realized then that we're not losing the cattle car. I mean, it's
Yes.
on a lease, It could be
Okay.
brought back after the lease is up,
Okay.
but you know, it was restored, and that's the main
wonderful,
thing.
wonderful, yeah.
So they were able to put
Okay.
thousands of dollars into that.
Okay, well, great. Let's go ahead and continue. I can't remember anything else on the north side of the building. I guess, and there are a few things out front. I did take a photograph of the front of the building. And things might be able to see what's there. But there are some cylinders on wheels.
Yes, yeah, those were fire extinguishers.
Ah, I knew
You
it.
know, for back in the early day, those would have chemicals
Yeah.
in them,
Yeah.
and when there would be a hose connected to it. They would pull those to wherever there was a fire.
Yeah.
When you set those up, that would touch off the chemicals to mix, and
Okay.
then it would shoot out a very heavy foam.
Okay.
And I've been told that, you know, once it started, it went until it ended, because there's not a turnoff valve for that.
Right,
Once those
right.
chemicals get mixed,
All or nothing.
It's all or nothing.
Okay.
So anyway, we have here, this is a really neat piece. It is a box grand piano, and I believe this
Wow.
dates back to about the late 1850s. Very fortunate to have that. And we've got some really interesting old Victrolas here as well.
Yes. Tabletop models. Interesting. Now, do you have any of the machines that were used, and they used a heavier needle, from what I understand, or a different type of needle, to actually make recordings where people could stand in front of the horn and speak loudly into the horn, and then instead of a needle following that platter, there would be a totally blank platter, but there was gearing that would force that needle to move across from the outside to the center, I believe, or it might have been the other way.
We have, I guess, a machine that would be kind of like a dictaphone machine.
Yes.
But these were not on a disc. This was
They
done
were
by
cylinders.
a cylinder.
Oh, okay.
And we had,
Yeah.
we have one of those
Okay.
in storage. But yeah,
Okay.
I know what you're talking
I
about.
have listened to some oral history interviews that have been recorded on some of those cylinders.
Yeah, it's a neat, interesting thing.
Yes.
Here we have just a lot of little household items that people would have used,
Okay.
and that have been donated by families that lived here at the time
Yeah.
at some point or another.
And what date ranges would these artifacts cover? Do you
Oh,
think?
these would be anywhere from the late 1800s on through probably 1940s.
Wow. Oh, wow. I love that compact wood burning stove. I presume it's wood burning.
Yeah, this one right here is, yes.
Okay,
And this is an electric one. This is the
Oh.
first electric stove in Osage
That's
County.
why it's so compact. I'm used to using what is called hobo or stick stove. I've converted into a wood gas burning stove as well, so it becomes very efficient. So, oil boom day information there. Now, folks, we're showing all of this to you in sort of a quick and hurried way to encourage you to come and visit these facilities. There's way much more here. There's way more here than we could possibly cover
Oh,
in the few
absolutely.
minutes that we're in here. And I know this is probably taking a little bit longer because I've been rambling along and extending everything. Have we covered just about everything inside?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
this is pretty much,
Well, there are two more
museum.
things on the exterior
okay.
that I would like to get a little bit more information about. One of them is signed as a schoolhouse.
Yes, that is an original one-room schoolhouse that has been restored, has been moved here onto the grounds. It was located, I think, about 15 miles away from Pawhuska.
Okay.
And It's named for Edith Layton, who I don't know if she particularly taught in that schoolhouse, but she did teach in a one-room schoolhouse. And she lived to be 101, I think.
Oh, wow.
And so, in her, you know, later on, she worked in, you know, the regular public schools as
Yeah.
a teacher as well.
Okay.
But it's really.
What are the dimensions of it? Do you know? It's tiny to me. It
Yeah.
looks tiny.
Well, you know, it would hold probably somewhere around 20 kids, actually,
Okay,
with the desk.
okay.
It's got desks
All
in
right.
it. We can let you look in there. But I'm just kind of guessing it's probably maybe 12 foot by, I don't know, 20, you know, probably maybe 32,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, maybe.
Wow. Now, what period of time was it in service?
It would have been 19, early 1900s. I would probably say maybe around 1920s, maybe a little bit before that.
Okay. So more than likely it would have handled all grade levels of students between first grade and possibly 8th grade, or did they go to the 10th grade at that time?
Well, it may have had all students. There were a lot of little schools like that all over the county.
Okay.
They were just little, you know, because people just didn't have the transportation to all
Right.
go in, kind of
Right.
like they did now.
Right.
So if you had a certain group of families, then they may set up a school so that those kids were able to walk to school
Yes.
within a timely manner,
Right.
and
Right.
get there. My mom, you know, told me one time about, you know, having to walk to school, you know, when she was in
My
first
mom did
grade,
too.
you know,
Yeah.
and so yeah.
Yeah, this is up in south central Montana. She said the school was about 3.5 miles away from where they had a farm and small ranching operation on the Yellowstone River. And there were certain times of the year where she was allowed to take a horse, and some of the other children would take horses too, some of them having to travel distances further than she was, and then also they had to go over a few of the low mountains in that area to
Right.
get there. So it was a little bit harder on those children than it was for her. I think it was mostly flat ground that she had to traverse.
And then lots of times when families, you know, and the kids you know, in their maybe their high school years, especially if they lived out on the ranches or on the farms,
Yeah.
they lived with someone in town.
Yeah.
And you know, then they would help them clean house or with their business or
Okay.
something to kind of earn their keep.
Okay.
But that would happen a lot. You know, and then that way they were able to go to the high school.
All right. Well, I think there's only one other major artifact outside,
Okay.
which I came by yesterday afternoon and took some photographs of the things in the exterior simply because the lighting was just right. And I was not going to miss that opportunity. I had already known that I would be returning in the morning, and of course the sun is in the totally opposite direction, bad for photography. So I took the opportunity to try to capture some good photographs of these things. And when I first took the photograph of this odd looking artifact, in the very beginning, and not looking at it up close, I'm going, well, that looks like some sort of a road grading machine, or maybe some sort of a rock crushing machine or something of another nature. And then, of course, I was preparing to get a really good look at it when you drove up this morning to do this interview. And I told you, hold on, I need to take a closer look at this while you get everything ready inside. So you came on inside, and I did take a closer look, and I think I might have an idea.
Yes, sir.
The front half of it that has the wheels on it, that is a repurposed case tractor. And I don't know my tractors all that well. I've been through a few shows, one thing and another, but because I don't have a keen interest in those types of tractors, it's hard for me to date it. But just by looking at its construction, one thing and another, I would say, oh, it's got to be late 20s, early 30s, somewhere around there. And then as I got to looking a little bit closer and seeing the other back part, what appears to be behind that original tractor, I'm going, okay, the engine supplied rotary power to this other stuff in the background. Here is a big cable or wire cable spool. There's some pulleys here, and this looks an awful lot like a modern cable tool drilling rig. Although I've never seen one, I've seen up in the Panhandle Plains Historical Museum. They have a cable tool drilling rig there that looks like a big wooden derrick, and the frames on those things are just huge because they've got to support a lot of weight when you're drilling wells that are pretty deep. That cable can weigh quite a bit, and then tool, your cable tool, depending on what it's got to pound through, that's got to have quite a bit of weight as well for it to be effective. So I'm thinking, okay, Oklahoma, the wells are a little bit more shallow, and so this is an improvement on that old rig that in some cases was powered by horse and mule power.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that item that you're talking about and describing it's a makeshift oil rig pulling machine.
Pulling machine.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's powered by a gasoline tractor.
Right. Right.
And so that's exactly what it is. So it's.
Okay. Now it is on skids, so it can be easily moved from one location to another, although it is not meant to be mobile.
Right.
So when you talk about an oil rig pulling machine, are you saying to pull that derrick up off the ground, or because cranes were not a thing back then?
Yeah. It very well could have been. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, all right. I will accept that. Because I really didn't see enough mechanisms there, with the exception of there are two independent brakes that would keep that wire spool from getting out of hand. And on the other hand, I didn't see any gearing that was there that would make it easier without changing the transmission on the tractor itself to be able to pull up that wire up, and then, well, of course, it'd be released. Don't really need a reverse, come to think of it. But just release that heavy cutting tool back down into the ground, make another punch, whatever is down there, to get down to where the oil is. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you would like to encourage people to come and look at that we haven't gone into? And I'm sure you've got tons of stories that you have not told, because we don't have the time here. I met your help yesterday. I think they're very capable of giving tours themselves. I don't know why they put it on your back.
No, we can, as I always tell people, when you come to the museum, make yourself at home. If you find something that you want to know more about, by all means, please ask, and I'll do my best to try either tell you the history on it, or maybe we'll try to get it figured out as to what it is.
Yes.
When you have a museum like this that has so many different things, when so many things were, a lot of papers were burned up in that room, and so we have spent a long time, especially during the COVID thing. We just, when we had to shut down, we came in, the museum staff, and then we went to work on really identifying finding out what a lot of things were that we didn't know,
Yeah.
and history to them, and going through files and all that kind of stuff.
Okay,
So,
great. And I know there were some stories that I discovered yesterday that we have not been over today. One of them has to do with the mountain lion back there. There's a story
Right.
behind that. And also there is a saddle that has a notorious history behind it. We didn't talk about that either. And I know there's got to be dozens of other things in here that have stories behind them. And we are going to leave it to the viewers of this video to come and visit the museum and find out what some of those mysteries are. We're not going to spill all our beans here.
that's right. And I encourage your viewers too, if they want to know more about this area or the Osage people in general, we carry a great collection of new, out-of-print books, autographed
Right.
books.
Right.
So we get calls from all across the country, and we ship books all across the country to people who are looking for those kind of things that they can't find.
Okay. Now, do you have an online resource where people
We don't
can
really
look at
have an
some-
online resource
Okay,
at
okay.
this time,
Okay.
just because of staffing. You know,
Right, right.
that takes another person to kind of keep an eye on that and make sure that
Exactly.
that's all caught up.
It's the reason I don't sell anything online. It's a lot of work to that.
Yeah, we would love to, but really, since the Pioneer Woman has opened her doors,
Yeah.
and then Martin Scorsese came with his crew,
Mm-hmm,
and Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, we don't have a lot of extra time to do anything else because we are doing a lot of work with the visitors.
I understand. I understand.
Which makes us very happy.
Right. And tell everyone what the hours of the museum are.
Yes, we are open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning till 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And Sundays we're open from 1 to 4. We're usually closed on Mondays.
Okay.
But I always encourage people that, call us. If you can't meet those hours, let us know, and we will work it out some way to have it open earlier or later.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It looks like we've already got some folks coming in to take tours of the own.
All right.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much
very
once
much.
again
We-
for letting us take a tour through here.
Well, we appreciate you coming, and we appreciate you wanting to showcase our beautiful museum here in Pawhuska, Oklahoma.